You know, I haven't figured it out yet. There really is like no secret sauce to this. But for whatever reason, people listen to this podcast. They listen to us talk, and I don't get it. I don't know if there's something wrong with them or if there's something wrong with us.
It's one or the
But
other.
yeah. But I think probably, I don't know. One of the things behind it that I think makes it enjoyable is there is a serious sense of honesty between the two of us when we talk. And I don't think we really care whether or not people like it, which is not really a good way to run a podcast or any sort of show or anything that you're doing like that. But it's interesting to me. Our show will be 2 weeks out, and I'll still get people tagging us, and I'll still get people posting it, and we haven't been advertising it or trying to push it or market it any kind of way, and it just continues to expand. And for that, I just want to tell everybody who shares it, who listens to it, that thank you. Thank you. Seriously, thank you. It means a lot. And I hope that it's a blessing to you. All it is, in one sense or another, is just a large counseling session, an educational session that Jason has been having with me for about 2 years now. So, yeah. And that he's moving on to his own basically show, podcast. What is it? What do we call it?
Yeah, I mean I guess it's a podcast. I think podcast is still just a catch-all phrase, but it's a series of pointed or focused discussions. So ours are kind of unfocused discussions. So
kind of the testing ground before you start doing.
Yeah. So I finished a series called "Religious, Not Spiritual," on what it means that Christianity is a religion and not a Gnostic spirituality. And that one, I mean, I'm averaging some pretty significant downloads and reads and stuff. I mean, for me, it surprised me. In the last 30 days, I've had 31,000 reads, and then
that's not lousy.
It's not at all. No, and then I'm already at over 100 listens a day on the podcast. Although on average it like shoots up in the middle of the week, and then in the weekend it's really down because I think the folks that listen to my podcast are busy trying to be with their families on the weekends, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So I can see that sort of thing. So right now I'm in the middle of one called The Mission of God for the Family. So
okay. You spoiled. I knew you were gonna get to this. Doggone it. All right. Now you did a class on this too. You just blew everything. Yeah. I don't usually have a setup for anything. And so I just thought you were gonna talk about that later. But since we're here, let me just, before you go in and blow up my whole setup for the show. Did you see the BET Awards last night?
I watched the clips as they came on. Yeah.
I knew you were watching.
Childish Gambino, and his stuff was it's interesting, man. Oh, but the funniest thing was Kamala Harris's. I was embarrassed when she was like, I'd be out here in these streets. I was like, what is going on?
You like, Kamala, you white. Stop it. You us, Kamala.
She's Indian. But then when she's like, they not like us. It's like, what is going on? This is the most pandering.
You should have seen the comments. That's what I was quoting. The comments are like there was white folks on there like, Kamala, you are like us. Stop it.
Well, but what I don't understand. So you introduced me to Black Twitter, and so that's where I start whenever I open Twitter, and that's because, but what I don't understand is, do people see through it? But they're like, they're the ones that are making us the promises, or they're just so convinced that, like, I'm not a registered Republican. I think we've talked about this before. Just because as partly just because of my ordination, think, okay, I'm independent, but also I've just the modern Republican Party hasn't convinced me that I should join. Um, they haven't consistently had a backbone. They what they've tried to do generally hasn't worked, or what they've promised to do they haven't fulfilled. So I just don't trust them. So I'm independent, and that means in that. So, but the history of the Republican Party, um, there's a lot to be proud of there. They're the ones that fought. That they're um, uh, they have been generally the human rights side, of the defend the rights of all people side of every argument.
Can I
But
reframe that? Can I reframe
yeah,
that?
yeah, please do, because I'm trying to. This is something I started working through literally last night
Oh,
as I was
good. Let's work through it
reading these
together
comments.
because I am too. I think I'm like you. I'm neither a Republican or a Democrat. I'm probably far more independent. Um, I could be moved to either side depending on the topic. I think that there is room there for, although I find it very, 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 very complicated and hard to agree with people on human flourishing if they don't get a few things right in the beginning.
Right,
If you, as it relates to a human being and their vulnerability and their innocence, to discard human life so frivolously after having such a strong history in this country of not counting certain people as humans, and then to miss out on the narrative that's developed over the years, and to be so easy to discard the most innocent. As soon as if you can't see that clearly, it makes it very, very complicated for me to want to be on your side about anything. So I question anything that you talk about at that point. But Republicans historically, I think, have been on the side of human flourishing more
right,
often than they haven't. And so their track record as relates to human flourishing, I think, is more solid long term. And I think they've had some massive bumps along the way. So that's why, they haven't convinced me to be Republican, because part of what I have to think about when I join a party is what's the crap I'm going to have to defend against. Right.
right,
You know what I mean? That's what I think about. What am I going to have to defend against? Because honestly, when it comes to a moral issue biblically, I'm not defending that crap. I'm going to fight against it. And so I'm always wondering which party is going to take longer to kick me out of it. And I think that in the Republican Party, I have a little more leeway in time before they kick me out if I'm going to associate. I feel like this is gangster talk where it's like, well, I'm affiliated with them, but I'm not them. You know what I'm saying? It's a difference.
uh,
I think that's actually the right way to think about parties in this particular point. I have
right,
affiliations. You know what I'm saying? I'm affiliated with the Republican Party, but I'm not Republican.
right.
Um, so I think they're going to take a little longer to expel me from their camp. But go ahead. You were talking about some things you've been weighing.
Well, so because at different times, so the first time I ever voted for a Republican presidential candidate was Trump this last time. And that was because that was Hillary that convinced me that I needed to vote for
Oh, that's the
Trump.
first time, 2016.
Yeah, so I voted against Biden because of having watched what happened with Hillary when she lost.
Uh,
I said, "Oh dang, they have something going on."
yeah, there's nefarious things going on there.
When
Yeah.
she when the reports of her getting so angry that she tore her hotel room apart and passed out when she lost, that made me realize she had another reason to think she was going to win besides thinking she was going to get enough votes. And
I
so
expect that every time she like wakes up and doesn't get her way though. So I wasn't so surprised by that. So
it was the people reporting on it.
uh
It was word
oh,
getting out.
they thought.
That's what. So I and so that was the for me, that was the moment that I realized there's something at the federal level, there's something else going on besides and maybe I should have noticed it a lot earlier. But I thought up until that point that there was like politicians are the worst, but we still have um,
Some semblance of
so of
yeah.
there's still a vote going on, right? Like, um,
Mm. We still got our hands in the mix.
we still are, yeah. And that was when I realized, oh no, that's not actually what's going on. So
Yeah.
I had written in Thomas Sowell in the election
Why would you do that to
in
him?
2012.
Why would you do that to
I
him?
know. I don't love him. If I actually loved him, I wouldn't want him to be president. But it's that's my protest vote. I was like, I just want some common sense in the White House. I want the uncle that looks over and says, "What's wrong with you?" to the Congress. That's what I want. The common sense uncle that's like, you know how this works, right? That's all I want. But
We don't
um,
deserve Thomas Sowell.
no, I know. It's national treasure, man. Yeah, there's a handful of just guys that God was like, here you go. You don't. This is above and beyond. Um, although, did you see that the that Hayek was on the list of most important books that Elon Musk put out? Books,
I saw you
most
sent me
important.
that. Oh
Yeah,
no, was
most
it you or
important books
Gabe?
you've got to read. Yeah, it was. I think I did, although um, maybe I didn't. I don't know. But he put economics in one lesson um, on there. Oh no, Road to Serfdom. That was the one he put on there. But anyway, that's an aside. That's a great book, by the way, Road to Serfdom. Um, so, but what I saw was that there was a what now has been termed lawfare. Um, the my thought what I saw Hillary doing that in 2012 and thinking, okay, this has got to be stopped. What I didn't expect was that the Republicans were all in on it too. And that's what happened in 2015, 2016, um, was the that it wasn't a Republican Democrat thing. It was a um, it was a centralist
Yes.
localist thing, right? That what was going on was you had the centralists, and it didn't matter if they were Democrat or Republican. They wanted to centralize power. They wanted to get as much power, to the top of the mountain, and then play king of the mountain. Um, and the thing about King of the Mountain is the person at the top always has the advantage in King of the Mountain, and that's the opposite of how the American politics is supposed to be set up. Um, you shouldn't being in power shouldn't give you advantage at the polls or give you advantage at the ballot box because that you're not given access to anything special in particular, constitutionally speaking. But that's not how it's working, right? So you have the weaponization of the Department of Justice. You have the installation of so when I started looking into it and realized like FDR um, used to threaten to pack the courts if he wouldn't get his way. And
Oh,
so he would
oh,
say, look, here's the deal. I can get the outcome I want, or I can put 5 new judges on and get the outcome I want. And the Supreme Court said, well, we have to to defend the integrity of the court against this man, we have to sometimes give him what he wants, even if it's illegal. Um,
dang.
Right. So you look at that and you think, oh, this is one messed up. This has been a messed up system for a long time.
This ain't nothing
Um,
new.
right. This isn't anything new. So the um, and I know FDR. I think even the Democrats didn't want him, so he had to start his own party, right? Because he was a Democrat, and then um, was he the one that that started his own party when the Democrat refused to put him back into the race?
I don't.
I
Yeah, I
can't.
don't. You have to. You're the
How
historian.
I think although that might have been his uncle who ran under the Bull Moose Party. Um, no, yeah, that was his uncle. So his uncle, um, when the party wouldn't put him back in, he said, "Well, then I'm going to run under my own. I'm going to run under my own party." I think he was the only person who had ever done that. But so you have really a centralist understanding of government, right? A power gathering and a power dispersing understanding of government, right? Where and and that has become really the question that I ask when I look through candidates. Is this candidate going to continue the trend of gathering power
Mm,
to or is this candidate going to disperse power? And that's it's a left right issue, but it's not a Democrat Republican issue, if that makes
right.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there are Republicans that are power gatherers.
Yes.
Trump proved that he's not.
Well, not in
Which is
every area. He is
not in
kind of.
every area,
Yeah.
right?
He's still a.
But I know that's a low bar, but during COVID, when he said, "Well, let's leave it with the states," when the judges that he put in said, "Let's leave it with the states," right? Those sorts of things, you go, okay, that's the right direction. Um, I,
But he shouldn't even.
I
Okay. Yeah. This is. Yeah.
so that made me happy. Now, there's a lot of things that don't make me happy
It, I don't. I
in
don't think
general.
so. Okay. Since we're going to get to the debate. Okay. So much to go through here. Let me play this
Yeah,
because I think this is important.
yeah.
Um,
This was
can you? I want to make sure that you can hear this.
No, Taraji. Now, I would.
Can you hear that?
again. Yep.
Okay, here we go. Okay, so let me set this up real quick because I don't think people know what's going on here. So you had the BET Awards going on last night, Sunday
Which
night.
are more important than the Dove Awards, just so you know.
That is true. That is true. And probably more important than the presidential election or the presidential debate. I would say
Yeah.
this is more important than the presidential debate. And something is really funky with it. Did you see that E40 and who else was it? E40 and Fat Joe are going to be doing an event or have done an event with Biden. Did you see that? Fat
No.
Joe and E40, some event with Biden. Okay. If and supposedly right now Biden is at Camp David with his family considering whether or not he should be in not in office. No. In the new presidential running. So they're having that conversation. But I just want like if he's not going to be in the running, can we remove him from office? Can we go ahead and do that? Is that a bad move? Is like, oh man, let's 25th Amendment this guy. Because you're gonna get Kamala, and then I don't know how they put anybody else except for Kamala in place to run against Trump. This is what okay, can I okay, man. Oh, I'm gonna get to this clip. I'll get this clip in a second, but I have to say this. All of my spidey senses are tingling, and my blackness is starting to give me the shivers a little bit because this is starting to feel very, very choreographed. And not choreographed in, I think, the way that everybody else is talking about it. We've had eyes in our head since 2019. Since Biden got elected, that election, we've known that this man was not mentally capable, not mentally healthy. It has been the clearest day. We've been watching a trajectory. Everybody has. And everybody on the other side has been arguing, no, he's fine. These are deep fakes. On my left, Democrat folks are saying Biden is sharp as ever. He's got a photographic memory. I mean, there's all sorts of clips out there who are showing that, yeah, oh yeah, you haven't seen that one.
Gosh.
He might have a photographic memory.
But he's out of film.
I'm just still in that one. But so everybody now So they've been fighting for his sanity, for his ability to govern. They think he's great. Biden knows what he's doing. No one cares about you and loves you more, which I don't want a president who really does. I really don't. There's certain things I want him to care about. I don't want him to care about me at my dinner table. How you doing, Knox? No. And so now after the debate, I didn't think this debate was any different than the last ones at any point. I've seen Biden really fumble. We've had footage. This is like watching the game film. We all knew it was going to happen this debate too. I thought it would be a lot worse than it was. But the previous debates, he's had fumble. There was one debate he did was like, oh, okay, he's not so bad. But we've had evidence of this. So this is not something new. The same eyes that they've been seeing the previous fumbles and all the degradation in his mind, they have those same eyes. Nothing has changed in this debate. Exact same Biden. We knew what we were getting, but the left and all the media on the left, they turned. They've went a completely different way. Now they're like, we're in panic mode. We're on the phone trying to figure out what's going on. I'm like, what? Like, why? This has been the same thing going on forever. And so I think everybody is like, oh man, they're going to do their move where they got to put another person in so they can run against Trump, and they think it's going to be either Whitmer or who some like to refer to Michelle as Big Mike, which I think is absolutely rude, absolutely unacceptable. People, you can't call a woman Big Mike unless you have some evidence that we don't. I just think that's cruel. But that's what they think is going to run. And they think that if Michelle runs, that we're going to have that Trump would lose. Gretchen Whitmer or Newsom. I don't think Newsom has the attention. They know it's not Kamala because don't nobody like her. Nobody likes Kamala. I don't think that's it, man. I don't think that they're considering that this play has been clearly thought out because of what happened this last debate. I think they don't mind Trump winning another election. This is what's starting to bother me. These guys are intelligent. They're smart. They know what they're doing, and they know they can't pull off an election just throwing somebody in here that has not been campaigning for the last 4 years. And then just to take a president out, which makes them look super weak, and to throw a last-minute guy up. Nobody expects the person coming in to be able to take the cake and win, even if it's Michelle. Nobody's expecting that because nobody in the middle, that gooey middle, so you got 30% on the left, you got roughly 30-40% on the right, and you got this gooey 30% in the middle. Ain't nobody expecting in the middle like, well, let's jump on Michelle and Whitmer. Governor Gretchen Whitmer? Nobody believes. No. There's no way. So there's a part of me that's like, no, their play is to absolutely I think they wouldn't mind if Trump won, and then they're just going to gang up on dude. I think they got other things in place in the deep state. This dude has been facing every lawsuit imaginable right now they could put against him that would have never been brought against anybody else. I think that they have a trap set for him in the office. They are setting the stage that he can't do it. So it feels like they're too intelligent to be doing this. So this is what they want. And I think we're so hungry for it that we can't see it. And we're just running right head first into it. Trump's going to win. Nobody else wants Biden. And we run in there and boom. I think there's some, I don't know what it is. I don't know exactly why or what, but something about this stinks. I mean, it stinks bad because those eyes that they've seen Biden with, this is the same eyes. These are the same moments. Nothing has changed. Yes, this is a thumbs up. My video screen's agreeing with me. Yeah. And so I don't think this is I don't think we should be running a victory lap around the left panicking. I don't think this is real panic.
No, I think we could have run anyone against I think the Republicans could have run anyone against Biden and won.
Yes. Hands down.
Right. I think that's the situation. I think this is actually, this happens. This is part of the cycle, right? So the Democrats they've been playing a long game, a centralization long game. So what they do is they get somebody in and they push it way beyond what people are comfortable with,
Right.
and it destroys something economically. And then they let a Republican back in, or a Republican gets back in because the country goes, what? This is awful. Gas prices are through the roof, whatever. And then a Republican gets back in, and they know that they can wear down the confidence in the Republican Party, and then get another Democrat in, and they push it way beyond again, and then it destroys something, and so this cycle has been a part of this thing for quite a while. And if you read After the Ball, which is really hard to get.
Yes, it's very expensive and super hard to get.
Super hard to get.
Jam, desensitize, and convert.
Yeah,
that was a trip.
ChatGPT would summarize it for me.
Of course it would, but you would have to find the PDF.
Yeah.
To really get a true summary.
To get a real summary, yeah.
So, Jason, part of what I think, too, is I don't think the Democrats are stupid enough to actually do lawfare unless they know it's going to energize a base. And the reason I say this is that if you go and you look at master classes on politics and you see those strategy guys talking about how they should run politics, they know what they're doing. They're not clumsily walking around into this. Go ahead.
But it's all how to win when your position is the minority position. That's what they're all talking about, right? How do you win when your position is the minority position? And it's the same with who was the guy that wrote the How to Be a Revolutionary?
I'll look it up real quick.
It was Rules for Radicals, Saul Alinsky.
Oh yeah, Saul Alinsky.
Same thing. How to win when your position, when you're the minority, right? How to gain power when you're the minority. That's a particular way of thinking that says that the issue is a power issue, right? You don't have to convince people to your side if you can get hold of the knobs and the levers. If you can get hold of the steering wheel, you don't have to have the most people in the bus. If you can get hold of the steering wheel. And so, I
got these. You want to hear these? I got like a summary of Saul Alinsky's rules. You want to hear some of these?
Yeah.
All right, here goes. Power is not only what you have, but what the enemy thinks you have. Ooh. Power is derived from the two main sources, money and people. Have-nots must build power from flesh and blood, leveraging the perception of their strength to their advantage. That's one. That's just one. Never go outside the expertise of your people. Staying within the comfort zones of your group. Knowledge and skills prevent confusion and fear. Number 3, whenever possible, go outside the expertise of the enemy. Number 4, make the enemy live up to its own book of rules. This is that right there. If the enemy actually made us do that, the problem is they don't know what our book of rules really is because it's not the scriptures. And so then they make us live up to a sense of unbiblical morality. And so then that's how they get us. But if they actually made us live up to our book of rules, we would have a better nation. But anyway, by forcing the opposition to adhere strictly to their own rules, activists can impose their weaknesses and hypocrisies, often overwhelming them with their own standards. This is something liberals do really well, right? But part of this is manipulating the rules and working out. It's what the Pharisees and Sadducees do.
Yeah. Well, do you remember that's how they took the Idaho seat? Was they went after the congressman for being gay? Now, they never even proved it, right? They never proved that he was gay. So I don't even remember how the whole thing ended, because it disappeared as soon as they got rid of him. The whole story disappeared from.
This is number 5.
Everything. Yeah, go ahead.
Ridicule is man's most potent weapon. That's all they needed to do. They didn't have to prove it. There was no real. This is why if we don't have a standard of biblical law, where's the evidence? Let's have a court case. Because there's two things. When you start actually talking about law and biblical law, particularly, it demands that either the liar or the guilty person gets justice, right? And so when this is why I did appreciate. I appreciate people like bring out the lawyers, bring out the judge, bring out the jury, because I deserve a trial. I am an innocent man, and you ain't gonna sit up here and lie on me. Now, somebody gonna pay for this. Now, people who don't call for that, I'm a little concerned. But it's like, no. If you got a case, bring it, baby. But don't be out here just being liable on me. I don't think so. So if this is why, and they don't want to do that. They just want the power. Anyway, Jason, I'm interrupting you.
Well, but it's these sorts of things are the reason that you can have such a tiny minority ruling and reigning in the country, right? Because they're thinking this way, and we haven't grounded ourselves in a biblical understanding of reality, and so we're easily moved. Because if somebody comes up and says, "Hey, you did this thing, and that's evil of you,"
No, I didn't.
and if you know you didn't, and just being able to say, "No, I didn't," that's a lie. That's not true, right? And they can, but what we do is we say, "Oh, I didn't realize I was hurting people's feelings."
Oh man,
right?
you're making me think about. Keep going.
But the other thing is that we don't know what to do with actual shame, and so shame becomes a point of control, right? We're easily controlled by shame, but the left or is the project that they have employed is to push shamelessness for them, right? So they can't be manipulated by means of shame because it's such a shameless.
But I watched CNN today.
The push. So I think that's something that is probably a demon-inspired sort of thing. Like it's there. I think there's an actual demonic source, because when you see it in practice, because I was in the Bay Area, right? So we're close enough to San Francisco to see what.
Thanks, Tucker.
Sorry, I'm trying to find this piece. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay.
But to see what like the gay pride parades were actually like, right?
Oh.
The stuff that doesn't make the news. And then to see what the March for Life was actually like, and see what how the news reported it. You have thousands and thousands of people there cheering at the March for Life. You have 8 protesters, and they interview 3 of the 8 protesters and take a picture of the protesters I watched them because we were walking past when they were doing it. The photographer was gathering the protesters up close to one another to make it look like there was more, and then taking the picture from down below. And then they say, protesters gather in force to oppose the taking away of the people that want to take away rights, right? You're like, there were 8 protesters. I counted. There were 8 people, but they were the ones that got. So you see that sort of thing, and you realize there's a game being played that is Saul Alinsky, right? Saul Alinsky published their game plan in advance, but because we, I think, have been unaware of how the world kind of functions and works. Oh yeah, I saw this. This was
okay.
Great.
This is what I want. Yeah, I wanted to bring up.
This is how you deal with it.
That's exactly right. I wanted to bring this. I'm trying to find the spot, but I want to bring up, because you were talking about the fact that when they say that you did something, how you need to respond to it. I think this is the part. So if I don't have it, I'm going to skip to find it, because this is so good.
You should be into it either.
Thanks, Tucker. One final question from.
Okay, so this is Tucker Carlson. He's in Australia. and he's doing, I can't remember exactly what this is, a press conference or something he's doing there. But he's been smashing for the last 20 minutes. He's been smashing all of the media and calling them out for just not being good journalists. He's not even mad at their political position. He's like, just be a freaking good journalist. That's all I want from you. Yeah. He is the Dave Chappelle of journalism.
Right.
That's what Tucker Carlson is.
From the press gallery, Kat Wong from AAP.
Hi, Tucker. Thank you so much for your address today. So you talked a little bit about immigration, and in the past you've talked about how white Australians, Americans, Europeans are being replaced by non-white immigrants in what is often referred to as the Great Replacement theory. This is the same.
Have I said that whites are being replaced?
Well,
I don't think I said that.
Well, it's been mentioned on your show 4,000 times.
Catch that. Well, you might not have said it, but it's been mentioned on your show.
Really, when did I say that?
On your
I said
show,
whites are being replaced?
You have said that before.
Really?
Yeah.
I would challenge you to cite that, because I'm pretty sure I haven't said that. I said native-born Americans are being replaced, including blacks.
Notice the assumption here already is like you're a racist.
Yeah.
There's go ahead.
And the people are hearing if people are hearing native-born Americans as whites, then you're literally not having a conversation.
Not anymore.
Two dictionaries.
Nope.
Native-born American.
Native-born American.
This is like what?
The black jobs comment.
Yeah. That's next.
And
Americans black Americans African Americans have been in the United States for, in many cases, their families over 400 years. And their concerns are every bit as real and valid and alive to me as the concerns of white people whose families have been there 400 years. So I've never said that whites are being replaced. Not one time. And you can't cite it.
Untrue.
So we just met, but when our relationship starts with a lie, it makes it tough to be friends. So
you've been lying
let's
about
pull
my
that back.
press
I'm happy to
gallery
explain what I do
well,
think.
so,
well, you actually can't say it because I didn't say it, and I don't believe it. And I'm telling you that to your face, so why don't you just accept me at face value?
Because I have a question and a point, and I'm going to get to that point because I am not a journalist. I am a clog in a machine.
Concern is that the people who are born in the country are the main responsibility of its leaders. And as noted earlier, when those leaders shift their concern from the people whose responsibility it is to take care of to people around the world to put their priorities above that of their own citizens, that's immoral. And they are being replaced in my country, people who were born in the United States. And the birth rate tells the whole story. They're not at replacement rate. And so the US population is growing because we're importing people from other countries. And my view is that happy people have children, and a functioning economy allows them to do that. And we don't have that. And so you need to fix the economy and fix the culture and make it so that people who want to have kids can. You don't just go for the quick sugar fix of importing new people. Like, that's my position. And if you think that's racist, that's your problem.
I never called you a racist.
Oh, I never called it. I just assumed it. I just assumed it.
But of course you are suggesting, and
well,
I must say one of the reasons people don't like people like you in the media is that you never say exactly what you mean. Your slurs are all by implication, and you're about to tell me the Great Replacement theory is racist or anti-Semitic, whatever. I've said what I've said to you right now like 100 times in public. I hope to, if I live long enough, say it 100 more times. I think it's completely honest and real, not racist or scary. It's factually true. It's not a theory, it's a fact. And the whole point of your question was to be like, you're a scary racist.
Well, I haven't.
And my response is, no, I'm not. Okay, well, how about no more lying in your questions, and then I'll answer it.
Boy, we better learn to do this.
Right.
We better learn to do this in this way too.
Okay, well, this is the same theory, or as you say, idea, that has inspired the New York Buffalo shooting where 11
God,
Americans
come on.
Two white men killed. Like,
Bro.
But this is somebody that this is somebody that knows the playbook of the other team.
Yeah.
And so he knows what play to run on defense when they line up for the nickelback. When they line up nickelback, he says, "Oh, I know what play they're running. I know what defense to run." You know, this is, and I think it's a.
This is masterful.
It is. It's masterful, and I would love to be having the discussion that he's talking about. Because when he says, I want to know what he means by fix the culture. How does he think that happens? I want to know what he means by fix the economy. How does he think that happens? Right, those sorts of things, because that's a discussion worth having. But he's absolutely right
and I think
that
he's
birth
having
rates
it.
go up when people have hope. They
Well,
go down when people are hopeless.
I think that he's to give Tucker credit, he's actually is having that conversation. That's why Doug Wilson is being interviewed on his show, right? That's why he's talking to a lot of people who are religious leaders in America, guys you might like and might not like, but he's searching for that answer. And it's clear he's searching for that answer. And when I see him saying, I don't care about all the flack that I get from having somebody like Doug Wilson on, whatever. I want to know who a Christian pastor here in America, I want to know what he's thinking on how we solve our problems. And when you get a guy like Doug to come on there and just straight preach the gospel and say, look, there's no political answer, get out of this.
Yeah.
And Tucker's like, yeah, you're right. And this is, he knows that's like, no, there's no, like, you're right. So, man, this whole thing, I just got to finish watching it.
Okay,
it's
not. First of all,
It's inspired one of the worst Australian guys
how do
of
they
all
get
time
people
to
this
shoot
stupid in the media? I guess it doesn't pay well. Look, I'm sorry. I've lived among people like you for too long, and I don't mean to call you stupid. Maybe you're just pretending to be, but I'm totally against violence. I'm totally against the war in Ukraine, for example, which doubtless you support. And like all dutiful liberals, support more carnage. I don't. I hate mass shootings, actually. Nothing I said, what does it mean to inspire something? My views are not bigoted against any group. They're honest. They're factual. That's not hate. That's reality. And my views derive from my deep concern for Americans, actually. Americans aren't having kids because they can't afford to.
Okay, that's enough. I can watch that whole thing. The whole 23 minutes is worth your time to watch because it's a masterful rhetorical education. What he does there, it's fantastic. I can't. That whole thing was good. Okay, where were we at? Would you want to say something before I keep moving on to the rest of these tactics? Or almost done.
If Tucker Carlson would have been given a deep, Vodi Bakkum's voice, he would be the emperor of the world by now.
With a voice like that. Tactic number 7.
Right.
No, tactic number 6. Saul Alinsky's tactics. Number 6. A good tactic is one your people enjoy. Engaging in enjoyable tactics ensure sustained participation and enthusiasm from the activist. Boy, if Tucker was a tactic, he ain't lying because I enjoyed all of that. A tactic that drags on, number 7. A tactic that drags on too long becomes a drag. Number 8, keep the pressure on. Constant pressure through the variety of tactics keeps the opposition off balance and unable to effectively counter the activist efforts. I don't think we pay attention to this. Number 9, the threat is usually more terrifying than the thing itself. The fear of potential actions can often be more impactful. We were just talking about this, right? It could be more impactful than the actions themselves, leveraging the opposition's imagination against them. If they do this, then they'll do that, and then they'll do this. The price of success, number 10. The price of successful attack is a constructive alternative. Activists must be prepared with solutions to the problems they highlight to avoid being dismissed as merely disruptive.
Now, that's the part that I don't think the current activists have done at all, because I've never heard anything except for we got to burn this thing down.
Well, I don't know. It depends. When they were talking about burning down police stations, they had basically a red coat regime that they were ready to put in place by saying, hey, let's just have local patrols of people who serve,
I guess,
so
that's true.
They have, that's the problem with the social justice movement. When it came inside the church, they had an answer for what they were doing. They wanted you to replace everybody who's in power with the people that they want you to put in power.
Yeah,
was
you're right. Because I guess they would say, well, you ought to have at least 50% non-white, non-white representation at the leadership level.
Yeah. So they do have, they're just so sly with how they do it that, it doesn't even seem like they're offering an alternative because they're smooth with it. Pick number 11, pick the target, freeze it, personalize it, and polarize it. Focusing on a specific individual or entity makes the campaign more impactful and easier to manage, while polarizing the issue can galvanize support.
Right. This is the Trump focus. This is them making everything about Trump all the time.
Which is force people who are not Trumpers to become Trumpers because they've galvanized us into a particular position.
Right.
And I don't think it's an accident.
No, it's not at all. I mean, I had, I on my felt board, Norma, the day that Trump got convicted, I made a felt of her wearing a MAGA hat. And then another one of a felt of his, a felt ankle bracelet and put it on the Trump shoes, which I think was one of the most brilliant campaign moments in living memory. That it's since Reagan said, "I won't hold your age against you, young man."
Yeah.
That's the last time you had something that brilliant, I thought. Those were two of my most popular posts that I've ever made. But I had people say, how can you support a man like that, right? A man with that low immorality.
Yeah.
And I kept saying, I'm opposed to using the law against your political opponents, right? I'm opposed to that. I'm opposed to that. They said, well, you can't, but no, you're saying you're in favor of Trump. I was like, I guess I am saying that to you. That's what you hear, but that's because they have made it personal, so that anytime you say, I'm opposed to that thing that side is doing, they say, so you must be in favor of adultery. Are you in favor of sleeping with with porn stars? Which I'm not even convinced he did, but it's amazing because of the letters that she wrote saying that it never happened. But that's a whole nother thing.
But is it though?
Well, it's not, but they have made it. They've made it so you have to just say, y'all don't know anything, right? The way Tucker did. He was like, are you acting stupid, or are you actually stupid? Right. That response, what's brilliant about that is he is just refusing the categories that they're putting forward.
Yes.
Right. They're trying to come in and say, because think about what they tried to do. They tried to link the Great Replacement theory with,
which is not a theory, by the way.
Right. Well, there's two versions of the Great Replacement. What they do is say, so you did the math and talked about replacement. There's this other Great Replacement theory that we're going to now combine together with what you said, which is not the same thing.
Right.
We're going to combine that together, and that gets us a connection to this guy over here who believed in a conspiracy theory version of the Great Replacement theory. And that guy did this thing over here, right, 4 continents away. And you are therefore responsible for it, right? So that reasoning is what they're talking about when they say personalize, right? Who is a representative of the Great Replacement theory? This guy who shot people. That's the representative. We're going to give the Great Replacement theory a face of this guy. And anyone who looks at the math and looks at the birth rates, we're going to say, oh, so here's the face of your math, right? That's the Saul Alinsky theory.
Number 12, if you push a negative hard and deep enough, it will break through into the counterside. Persistent pressure on the negative issue can eventually turn into a positive outcome. Wow.
Yeah, that's the CRT right there.
This is really interesting. So so here's the core principles. I'm just going to run through these real quick. There's 3 of them. 3 core principles of the Alinsky method. empowerment of the poor. No, we know that's a lie. His primary goal, Alinsky, that is, was to empower marginalized communities to take control of their circumstances and challenge the status quo. Is that not critical theory or no? Right? Like, it wasn't. This is what's so amazing. It wasn't, guess what? God has given you the same kind of dirt he's given everybody else. And if you put your hands in it to work it, he will bless you like he has blessed anybody else.
This is why they don't like Booker T. Washington.
This is why they don't like the Bible. Covenant faithfulness over time breeds success. Bottom line, dot the end, get to work. Here's the second thing. Oh, you want to say something to that, Jason? I'm sorry. I'm just in the mood.
Oh, no. I was just thinking about black jobs, but.
You know, I'm not going to go there. It's funny because I'm split on this. I really am, because all of a sudden people act like they don't know what black jobs are when they always are talking about black jobs.
Yeah.
It's kind of hilarious. Like,
it's been one of Joe Biden's talking points.
Create more jobs for blacks. It's one of the things that he's been like now I don't know, like Trump, the way he framed it and used it, knowing how people are going to use it against him, like, has been like, that wasn't as wise of a way to make the statement. Let's just be honest.
Okay. But we got Black Girl Magic, and nobody's like, what's black
what does that look like?
Girl magic?
No,
right?
I agree.
What's girl magic?
But,
right?
But this is
everybody knows what those adjectives mean in that situation.
Everybody does.
That's not an uncommon adjective.
No, but I think but when you know, this is a rhetorical game now. It's not, look, there are some, you and I go into the same neighborhood, there's certain language I can use, you can't. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not like, it's not saying that you're wrong or I'm right. We're just saying, like, you better know the audience in which, if Trump, that was a great moment for Trump to talk, to really be Uncle Trump in one of those senses, the same way that Snoop, and it's a great way for him to be that way. But he's got what I think he feels like he's going to get from the black community as far as votes. He really could have used that and said, listen, you ask black people and ask if they feel like they are more successful under his reign. Because if he knows, when he got arrested in Atlanta was like, look at this, RICO charges. Like, yeah, it ain't so fun now, is it? See how they doing him? If they're going to do this to him, they're going to do this to all of us. He had a moment. And I just think that he didn't use that moment well. But I'm not trying to criticize him because he talks about black jobs like that. I know good and well people have been saying that for a long time. It was just a funny moment to capitalize on. If you can get the right momentum pushing it, then you can get a lot of people making fun of it. But
I think
they actually have a category. They actually have a category inside of I can't remember. I went and looked at it. I couldn't believe it. It's like, actually, black jobs in America, right? Like the work, black work. That's like, well, it's actually.
I bet blackjobs.com has like a ton of people.
Is there? Doesn't even
at
exist
it right now?
Huh? I don't think that exists. Are you serious? I'm looking it up right now, dude. Did you go there? Do you know this exists? Blackjobs.com?
It's got to exist.
No way. I don't believe it for 2 seconds. Needed as X. Oh my goodness. There's literally a blackjobs.com.
I hope they're getting a ton of traffic right now.
Nope. Hold on. I got to share this one. There's literally,
there's no way that doesn't exist.
What is a black job? Guess what, bro? We're about to find out what a black job is right now. Okay, where should we look at? Oh my goodness, all the jobs. You just go to all the jobs. Project manager, transportation. Oh my goodness. Regional director of nursing, catastrophic complex care. So black jobs are basically jobs for everybody else. The same jobs. Transit vehicle electronic technician. Look at this.
So
look at all these black
me
jobs.
When he says American jobs are being replaced, and then he says, and he lists them out, and one of the things he lists is black jobs, that's actually a normal phrase that people have always been using. This is the thing. That's what I'm saying is, I think that
This is a real site, Jason.
I know.
Okay, where do we want to look at? I want to look in Minneapolis. Let's look in Minneapolis.
Yep.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
I just think that what you have is there's always a double standard because of the tribalism, right? Tribalism is what creates a double standard. You don't feel like you have to hold people that are yours, us, to the same as them, right? The same standard doesn't have in tribalism. The standard for us and the standard for them are different. So it's a metaphysical issue that is being put on display.
New Jersey State Police, that's a black job. Do you know that? Black job right there.
I'm not surprised at all.
The site might be a little broken.
I think the inflaming the issue of racism is a tactic, not a it's not substance. Right? Does that make sense?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm looking at I'm trying to see if any of these guys who are looking for folks, they call this a black job. I'm just trying. I mean, it's on blackjobs.com. Is there a whitejobs.com? Ooh, I gotta go see now. Oh no,
yeah.
what?
I would love to. Yeah, there's also not White Entertainment Awards, but that's
well, outside
White
of BET
Entertainment
Awards.
Television.
I don't think that that domain doesn't exist. It's going to exist by the time we're done. That actually happened. That's amazing. Oh my goodness, Jason, that's amazing. Hold on. Okay, all right.
Yeah,
I didn't finish. Go ahead.
Well, my thought is just that this is an example of one of those things that Tucker's running into, where you have a man who the only reason he didn't say black jobs is because he couldn't get the words out, right? And then you have when Trump says it, I think you can't take that seriously,
right.
There is a level of ignorance in our country, just across the board.
Can I tell you why I didn't like it? I mean, I know that that's the category, but the reason why I didn't like when he said black jobs, I was like, my filter just is like black job. I don't ever want a job to be categorized by the color of my skin, right? Like that whole idea, immediately I have to buy into that worldview that's, and even when I say black church, I'm not even meaning that. Like,
right.
It's trying to, I wish we could have a conversation without having to do that. But unfortunately, we're kind of into that. But there isn't when you see black people become pilots, like, oh, that's a black job there. But that's what the website is clearly making the statement of, is like, here goes a bunch of jobs for black people. That's what they really mean. I'm guessing if you're a black person, you're educated and you can't find a job, here goes a .com, blackjobs.com, and you can find a regular job there.
Well, I mean, I think that even in the context of what Trump was talking about, right? He's talking about how you have companies that are hiring illegal immigrants because they can get them for cheaper than you can hire under the table for cheaper than you can hire over the table, and companies are doing that. And the more people that you bring into the under the table market, the worse it's going to get. And then he says, and this doesn't just this affects every American, right? In the context, it's not unclear that
what do you mean?
That the adjective is applied to a different that the adjective for the job is in reference to the people, not the job, right? I mean, that's how adjectives work. And in the context, it wasn't unclear. But if you're watching your candidate get just completely
destroyed.
walloped,
Yeah, you got to find something.
you're gonna find something, right?
Galvanize
And so
it.
when they do that, like you get funny jokes, right? All that, like none of that bothers me. I think what bothers me is that is still the thing that they have decided to talk about. When you have a candidate who's got blank eyes from dementia.
Well, hold on.
On the other side.
This is going to go to your point right here. Like this is so the BET Awards goes on. Taraji P. Henson, I believe, was hosting it or leading it in a lot of ways. And this is what they lead. One of the things that they lead with, I believe, is this.
No, Taraji. No, Taraji. Now, you know I wouldn't do that, especially not to a fellow bison. The real HU? You know. So what's on your mind?
You know.
Oh, Madam VP Harris, I'm worried about the election. Women's reproductive rights are on the line. Our Supreme Court is on the line. Our basic freedoms are being tested, Madam VP. I know you've been traveling across the country. What are you hearing?
Yeah, girl, I'm out here in these streets.
I guess me every time. Oh, that's so ridiculous. I'm out here in these streets.
I'm out here in these streets.
Man.
I'm out here in these streets.
Unless she's talking about the streets of India. I don't know what she's talking about. I don't know.
I bet she has a huge bottle of hot sauce in her bag too.
Oh.
The last time I heard something this cringe was Hot 975 when Hillary Clinton came on there and said, I got hot sauce in my bag too. And she literally, I think she actually had some hot sauce in her bag. And, you know, I can't believe this. It's, let's finish it because there's more. But she's out here in these streets.
And let me tell you, you're right, Taraji. There is so much at stake in this moment.
You know, like whether or not Joe Biden is capable of putting together a full sentence without passing out or climbing stairs without his wife. Huh.
The majority of us believe.
Who's us?
Yep.
In freedom.
What were you going to say?
But this is the tactic, right? The majority of us, it's an us them.
Yep.
It's an us them issue that they're trying to drive, and they use ambiguity and they use double standards to drive the tribalism of the us them in a way that I think it's destructive to the fabric of the nation. I mean, I hate to say stuff like that, but it's a power-based metaphysic that does tear people apart, and it is anyway. Keep going.
And equality. But these extremists, as they say, they're not like us.
As they say.
Because she's been in these streets.
I've been out in these streets.
She's been out in these streets.
They not like us. Right. But to frame everyone else as extremists, right? So this is the rhetorical piece. This is the Saul Alinsky rhetorical piece, right?
Do we need to watch any more of this? Are we done?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think that's the cherry on top.
Yeah.
They not like us, right? It's a phrase that has no meaning in that context. Those extremists over there, right? None of these words have meaning because they're all weasel sucked eggs, right? They're shells of former words that now are sitting there and they're picking them up and they're saying like, hey, look, here's the words we're going to use. They've destroyed them with their by co-opting them into a tribalist metaphysic of the nation in order to gain power, right? So and when I watched something like that, and I just Kamala Harris's whole career was built on putting black people in jail. Right? Like that's who she is. That's like Joe Biden's whole career was built on being the one that opposed segregation, right?
No, supported segregation.
Oh yes, sorry, supported segregation. That's his. So like they're now they're trying to say, like, so this is where the conversation started, because I saw a bunch of people saying, if I'm going to support one side over the other, it's going to be the progressives, especially the progressive Christians that opposed slavery and that fought the Ku Klux Klan, and no, those were the progressives. But they've completely flipped the narrative in most people's mind, and so all of the things that were done by Republicans are now being claimed by the Democrats, and the things that the Democrats did are being called Republican things. So the Ku Klux Klan was a Democratic organization,
right?
Hillary Clinton was trained by a leader of the Ku Klux Klan in politics, right? She spoke at his funeral, right? These are not things that are done in private. It used to be something that they considered a great honor to have the support of the Ku Klux Klan. Margaret Sanger started Planned Parenthood with Ku Klux Klan money, right? These are things that are well known, and the Republican Party was the one that wanted that fought against those movements, that have fought against the evolutionary theory of mankind, that gave different skin colors different values, right? That evolutionary understanding of mankind was opposed by the Republican Party, and I don't understand how the narrative got flipped so effectively, other
Education.
than they took hold of the educational system.
Yeah, they've completely reframed the whole story, which, yeah. So you said so much. I don't want to interrupt too much more of what you wanted to say. Go ahead if you want to say something else.
Well, it just makes me realize that we got the wrong end of the bat if we think, every time we get up to bat, we got the wrong end of the bat if we think that something besides making sure our children get a good education is where you start.
So there's these 3 points: empowerment of the poor, which we just talked about. And I just got to say real quick, notice that I think that people who are Christians, particularly, no matter what your state in life is, have to look at this as desert moments. If you are poor and you don't have a nation, like, you know what I mean? Like I'm giving children of Israel examples. I'm using this to say you don't have everything you want. You're not where you need to be. You have promises from God that he's given you, but you're in the desert. One of the things the devil is always going to tempt you with is getting there before you should. Right? Getting there before you should. The same way he tried to tempt Jesus. He didn't fail, but the children of Israel did many a times. They failed many times in the desert. Don't be like that. They're offering you this bait. Listen to this. Their primary goal was to empower marginalized communities to take control of their circumstances. Not by actually doing the things that you need to be doing, like loving your wife, loving your kids, getting them out of government education, teaching them to love the Lord. That covenantal realities, they want to reestablish what that looks like and what that is, which is, hey, the government, they got money. We deserve more than this. And that's what they're selling you. They're selling you a bag of goods. Yeah, you deserve more than this. Aren't you thirsty? The God who brought you out of Egypt, he ain't going to give you no water, so you better complain, right? You ain't got no meat. He just give you all this bread. You better complain, right? That's what they're offering you. And when you see that, you need to run from that. I don't care if it's a Republican Party. I don't care if it's a Democrat Party, because right now, the Republicans are doing the same thing, right? And we're sending our petitions to them. Well, go ahead. What are you going to say?
Well, think about the spirituals that the slaves sang, right? Let my people go, wade in the water, right? God answered those prayers.
Mm.
And it is, so we actually should expect that the temptations that come are going to be the temptations that come with the crossing the Red Sea, getting out of slavery, crossing the Red Sea, that the next set of temptations is going to be that, right? Because I think they rightly identified where they were at in the story at that moment.
Yep.
They went before the Lord. They were they trusted in the Lord. They were faithful to the Lord, and God rescued them, right? And the reality is there were a lot of Egyptians that went with the Hebrews into the desert, right? And said,
Mixed
"Oh
multitude.
man, yeah, we're going with the slaves because God's with them," right? You had a lot of Americans that said, "Hey, you know what? This that rejoiced, with the fall of slavery, right?" And the Egyptians were decimated by their by God rescuing their slaves from slavery, and you have really the same sort of story happening. What's really interesting is now the attempt is you've got a couple of things going on. You've got the attempt to complain, the temptation to complain in the wilderness, but you also have the people trying to turn everyone against one another, the same sort of way that you have people look at Moses and say,
"We got to get rid of this guy.
We got to get rid of this guy," right?
That's right.
You have all of that sort of thing, when really in this situation, Jesus is the Moses character, right? That led them out. And now they're like, we got to get rid of this Jesus guy. Do you realize how long it took, how long it took him to get us to this point, right? So you have the same sort of temptations in that situation. And, what you do with temptations is resist them, right?
Number two,
fight against them. You repent of them.
So we got empowerment of the poor is one of his tactics. That's all those 12. This is a summary of those 12, which is empowerment of the poor. Number 2 is ethics and morality. Man, this one gets me. Ethics and morality. Alinsky argued that the ethics of means and end are relative and should be judged by their outcomes rather than abstract principles. Wow. That's how we're doing ethics and morality now.
What's interesting, though, is that we'd actually even be better off if we let that happen.
Well, it's funny.
If you looked around and said, because the left, that's one of the things that the left doesn't ever do, is look around and say, how did that work out for you last time?
Well, if we had biblical justice, this wouldn't be an issue, because real justice actually solves the problem, because it deals with the what is the ethics here, and it deals with the morality and the outcome of the situation at the end of the day. It deals with the ethics and the morality. But when you don't have biblical law, you can point at grievances and still say, oh, there goes that one. This is still here too, because you're not dealing with the issue. Sharon we talk about this a lot as it relates to people who steal, making them not actually restore to the person that they stole from, and being biblical in that way doesn't actually restore the relationship. Justice not only offers back the thing that was taken, but it really does restore a relationship back to people. And some of the things that we're missing in this is that we have injustice because the state acts as the party offended, so that the person pays back to the state and still gives the middle finger to the person that they injured. Right. So you don't have real justice. And so then the person injured is always going to feel like, man, I didn't get right. And then the person who was the criminal is going to be like, well, I'll just do it again because I didn't really have to pay no. But he wasn't broken by real justice. And so then you can take that and you can galvanize people that way. And so
but you can only galvanize envious people that way. Right. And so I think that
But yeah, we don't get justice. That can develop real easily.
really easy. Yeah. Right. So, but if you, so the way to resist envy is to actually believe that God puts things right, even when the state messes it up, right? That you can look at it and say, "Oh, God will put this right," right? That uh, that we don't live that there's a that the King of Kings is actually going to deal in time in history with these things, so that his justice is actually still being truly enacted.
Yes.
Even when the state fails.
Was that 1 Corinthians 10? His enemies are being made his footstool, right? Like that's actually happening right now. So I want to finish here on the role of the organizer. That's the third level of these 12. Is just the role of the organizer. The organizer's role, listen to this, is to agitate, create awareness, and build a mass movement capable of challenging power structures. Effective communication and credibility are crucial. Wow.
So this is why early on, when Obama first came on the scene, they said he doesn't have any experience. They said, well, no, he has experience as a community organizer. That's because he was working a Saul Alinsky angle up there in Illinois.
Can I just point out real quick that we just went through, I want to label these again: empowerment of the poor, ethics and morality, role of the organizer. So the organizer, prophet, priest, king.
Yeah.
Right. That's the, and I don't think these roles are not just governmental, because you can apply these roles in any case, but I think these transcend and mess up the whole overlapping spheres of sovereignty, right? Spheres of government. So I think this particular, though, is facing right inside, this is doing all of them, but particularly the family, right? If you have a father who understands his role as a prophet, priest, and king, how he's supposed to guard his family, how he's supposed to oblate his family, how he's supposed to wash his family in the water in the word of God. These are roles that a family that has that, this stuff doesn't affect them the same way. As for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. And so they've come directly for that angle where it's funny watching the BET Awards. One of the themes that I kept hearing over and over again, particularly from Usher when they gave him the achievement of Lifetime Achievement Award. And he kept saying, this is the year of the fathers. He kept saying that over and over again. And it was really striking to me that everybody is seeing, I don't care, we are so far at the bottom that even the pagans are saying fathers are kind of important.
Right.
Even the people on the other side who, I mean, his whole thing was, I am here because I didn't have a father. And so it drove me to be a good man, to achieve a lot, so I can be a good father to my kids. At the core of what he was doing, that's what he was saying that whole time. And it was interesting that that's the narrative right now. And I look at the debate that was going on, the presidential debate, that whole thing was paternal. The whole thing was ownership and fatherhood. Who's going to be the better dad? Is it going to be Biden or is it going to be Trump? Which dad do you want, America? Right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think you see the same conversation around LeBron and Bronny right now. Same conversation.
That's exactly where I was going. Like,
is it really a bad thing though? Like, is it really a bad thing to have LeBron for a dad and to have LeBron be such a good dad? Right? Is that, you have the same.
Well, it is. Like, it is. It is a bad thing if you have for the last 30 or 40 years degraded fatherhood.
Right. But
right. So how do you come out of that and say, oh, he's being a good dad now? Because every time you looked at nepotism before, you were like, whoa, this covenant thing with these families. He brought his son in. You wouldn't bring yours?
I think that even the fight against nepotism is a fight against reality. Right? and it's not that there isn't such thing as nepotism. That's not it's not a brand new concept to say, right, man, you were, but nepotism used to mean you were a bad father, and so you did not prepare your children for their inheritance, right? That's what nepotism used to mean.
Because it wasn't that they weren't going to get it; it's that
because it wasn't.
Yeah,
right. It's just that you didn't. Nepotism used to mean you didn't prepare your children for their inheritance, and that was it. And so you failed as a father. Now nepotism is blamed on the children, right? Which is a completely different mindset, right? It's a rivalry between the generations that's assumed. It's assumed in Greek thought. They fight against it in Roman thought, but every story assumes that they in Roman thought, the belief was that being Romans could, being pious Romans, which means Romans that kept that did your duty, that's how you overcame the rivalry between the generations, but the rivalry was there. The 10 Commandments, and this is something my pastor pointed out in his sermon, which I thought was really cool, right? That the 10 Commandments, they begin the second table of the law with the undoing of the rivalry between the generations, right? It assumes a historical people. It assumes a generational people is what God is going to deal with, that God's image restoration project, which is what the 10 Commandments is about, right? The 10 Commandments is an image restoration, an image restoration project. That it assumes that it's going to be a generational project, that it's going to be a from one generation to the next. That's how God is going to restore the image of God and his people, and restore the image of God eventually throughout the whole world. Because I mean, think about this, right? He says, how do we know it's going to go well with you in the land?
Obedience to parents. Yeah.
When parents and children are working together, right? When children look at the mission of their parents, right? This is Adam and Eve stuff, right? When children look at the mission of their parents and they say, I'm going to submit, right? I'm going to take on the mission of my parents. I am going to obey my parents. I'm going to listen to my parents. So that's the restoration of how it's supposed to be in the garden, because Adam and Eve were told, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth, take dominion, right? That the dominion order was something that comes from the fruitful multiply. It's not something that Adam and Eve can do. They have to be fruitful, multiply, bring children into this mission that God gave them, and then they'll be able to take dominion over the earth. They can't do it on themselves, so on their own. So the fifth commandment, as an image restoration commandment, is a return to the garden commandment. It's a return to the dominion mandate commandment. We turn it into, hey, you got to do what I say, rather than but it isn't addressed to parents, right? It's addressed to children. That means that parents are there to teach their children how to be prosperous in the land, right? You're teaching it, like that's what it's a dominion, prosperity, faithfulness to the Lord,
post-millennial.
I mean, I think it is a fundamentally eschatological commandment. It has to be otherwise it's legalism, right? Because thou shalt not. So think of this, right? You got thou shalt not, thou shalt not, thou shalt not. And then the last commandment of the first table, thou shalt honor the Sabbath and give rest to one another. And the first commandment of the second table, thou shalt honor, are the only positive commandments, right? The hinge between the two tables of the law are the two positive commandments. And then it goes back to thou shalt not, thou shalt not, thou shalt not, thou shalt not, thou shalt not. Right? So you've got the two positive commandments in the middle are give rest, right? Honor the Sabbath and give rest to one another, right? Give rest to everybody in your power, right? That's the kind of people you, as my people, are going to be. You're going to be a rest-giving people because I have given you rest, right? So honor the rest, right? So when Jesus comes as the Lord of the Sabbath, right? He's the Lord of rest.
Hold on, you're breaking up. You got to try that again. I don't know why or how you broke up, but man, that's the devil if I ain't never heard it.
Right? When Jesus comes as the Lord of the
what
Sabbath.
is this?
Oh no. Is it not working?
Don't forget what you were just saying because you froze.
Okay. Am I back yet? Oh no. Am I back yet?
Oh, I left too. I don't know what happened. You back?
I can hear you. You never froze for me.
Can you log back in? Don't say my screen's blinking. I think it might even be on my end. Try logging back in real quick. There we go. You're back. All right.
Back?
Yeah.
Okay.
So say that again.
Okay. So, what did I just finish saying when I froze?
You were saying the Jesus fulfilling the fifth commandment.
Yeah. So Jesus comes as Lord of the Sabbath, right? So he is the great. I mean, he is the great rest giver. But he also is the one who finally restores rest. So he fulfills the positive fourth commandment by being the great rest giver. But then he fulfills the positive nature of the fifth commandment by all of the ways that he came obeying his Father. I come not bringing my own word, but the word of the Father, right? I come delivering to you what God has told me to say. I say nothing that I'm not told by my Father. I do nothing that I'm not told. Right then, the Garden of Gethsemane is the great moment of the fifth commandment, where he says, "Not my will, but your will be done," and he submits to the will of the Father in the Garden of Gethsemane. And what that does is it fulfills the fifth commandment in an ultimate sense. And so the fifth commandment is nailed to the cross. It goes into the grave. And then the fifth commandment is raised from the dead in Ephesians 6:3 for everyone now, right? So now you've got a bunch of pagan kids. The fifth commandment has been raised from the dead, transformed, glorified to obey your father and mother, and it will go well with you in the world. So it no longer is a land commandment the way it was in Deuteronomy, in Exodus 20 and in Deuteronomy 5. Right? It's a land commandment there.
Because it's returned back to the restoration of the. Did I just jump in front of what you were going to say? I'm sorry.
But you're exactly it, right? So you've got this move. It's a rest, because the move into the land is a restoration of the garden.
Can I start?
Of the garden was to garden the world, and so Jesus comes, and the fifth commandment has restored Israel's, because Jesus is Israel, right? He's the representative of Israel. He's the son of David, right? He is the representative of Israel, but he's also the son of Adam, right? So he's the representative of mankind. So he is the ultimate restoration of the image of God. And the Garden of Gethsemane is the fifth commandment restoration. But that doesn't destroy the fifth commandment. It glorifies it. It moves the fifth commandment from the garden to the wilderness, right? From the garden to the wilderness. So now you've got, from the garden to the land to the wilderness. But that was something that began happening with the prophets, right? So Isaiah in particular, you see the beginning of the movement from the Holy of Holies and the holy place. You see the beginning of this movement and the prediction of the movement to the whole land being holy. And so then when you get to Ezekiel, now you've got the Holy Land, but you've still got the wilderness out there. Well, now Jesus comes and he tears the veil of the Holy of Holies, and the whole world becomes the Holy Land, right? And then the Holy of Holies is heaven. So you've got this shifting cosmos that happens. Like literally, I think, I believe at the cross, the whole cosmos was recentered, right? In the cross and in the resurrection, the entire cosmos was recentered around Jesus, right? That's what Colossians is talking about. Jesus, when he becomes the integration point, that's what John is talking about when Jesus is the Logos, right? That it is a full cosmic recentering of everything around Jesus. But what that means is now the fifth commandment is in its glorified state. So Paul can say to these little Gentile kids, obey your father and your mother, and it'll go well with you in the world. And the restoration of the image of God project that God started with Abraham is now he's making the whole world children of Abraham. Right? Galatians 4, when it says you are now all children of Abraham, what that means is you are all a part of the restoration of the image of God project. Right? You've all been grafted in to the new humanity of the rest that is restoring the image of God. This is so when we look at our kids, we have some of God's children who we are responsible to bring into the Dominion Project, that we're responsible to show them what it looks like to prosper in God's economy.
By the way, this is why you baptize them. because
absolutely.
Because here's one of the deal. If the fifth commandment applies to your children, then so does baptism.
I think it's inescapable.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's the only thing that makes sense of having a commandment to children in the 10 Commandments, especially the first commandment in the agenda aspect of the people of God is if it starts with kids, right? It's a historical people that still, right? And Ephesians 6:3 tells us it's still a historical people, right? We aren't on a different kind of ahistorical people group now, right? That's not the way that it works, right? If the new covenant continues to apply the 10 Commandments,
and it does,
and it does, right? It absolutely does. Then we have to be the same, have the same kind of historical people understanding. Now,
well, because otherwise, then I don't know how you get in this either, right? Like that's the binding of it, right? Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, and this is why I wish that we could have this conversation with some Baptists, because I don't know what they would say. I've seen people say, well, circumcision is and baptism have different, they are signs to different things, right? They are not analogous signs. So then I would just want to say, what is the analogous sign, right? So if it's not baptism, what is the analogous sign? What is it? I want to know so that I can deal with my Baptist brothers and sisters and encourage them there with whatever it is. Because right now, if circumcision and baptism aren't the analogous signs, even though I think the Old Testament, because the baptisms of the Old Testament are the ones that are bringing God's people, making God's people into a people, right? The Red Sea, the Jordan River, the flood, right? You've got the baptisms of the Old Testament,
diverse washings.
Yeah, right. So I do think that even in the Old Testament, there's a a direct connection, but or an analogous connection or a metaphorical connection. But if it's not baptism, I don't know what it is. And so I would love to hear a Baptist or talk to a Baptist that wants to have a real conversation, that's not trying to score points, because I just don't understand.
I took you off with that one. You can.
Yeah. But because I think the historical nature of the restoration of the historical nature of God's people, right? The undermining of the rivalry between generations is so fundamental to the good news, that if you take it out, you have lost one of the legs of the chair.
The dominion aspect of it, right? I think you lose that, which is why. Go ahead.
You lose the dominion aspect, but I think you lose the Trinitarian reflection of restoration, right? You lose the family's reflection of the Trinity, because Jesus is not a rival of the Father, right? Jesus, he enjoys, like that's how Hebrews describes it. He enjoys submitting to the Father because he trusts that the Father has his best in mind, right? So when the Father says go to the cross, Jesus said, or the Hebrews tells us, Jesus went to the cross for the joy that was set before him.
Yeah,
right. The obedience was a joy, not a chore. And and that's because he fully trusted his Father. I had a really great conversation with one of my sons a couple weeks ago. My wife and I were talking with him about about heading off. He's getting ready to head off, and and we just said, what things is there anything kind of hanging out there that we haven't dealt with, right? What is there any? And he said, he said, as parents, you guys were trustworthy, and I knew you had my best in mind, even when we fought. That wasn't ever a question. And he said, I believe that about God now. I'm going to be okay. Right. And he could see that the transition was, as he moved out from directly underneath our day in, day out authority to live in his own life, that the transition to believing the same thing about God, it had happened. And it was so encouraging, right? That's all you want. At the heart of everything we want is for our kids' relationship with the Lord to flourish.
Yeah.
Because there's no way to make it not hard. There's no way to make them not sinners. There's no way to make them not have to struggle in the world. Right? Struggle happens the way sparks fly upward, Solomon says. Right? The difficulties in life are unavoidable. So you're launching your children into the difficulties of life, and you just want them to know and trust that the Lord has their best in mind, and they can trust him, and they know what to do with their sin. They know how to confess it, right? And that they know that the Lord loves them more than you do, more than you ever could, more, and that they can rest in the love of God towards them. That's all you want, right? Well, but that's something that you're training them into, with your confession of sin to them, to God. You're training them into your trust. You're trying to trust the Lord. You're telling them when you're struggling to trust the Lord, but you should. Explaining to them that God is trustworthy, telling the stories of the way God has answered your prayers, praying with them, teaching them to pray, showing them what prayer looks like, showing them what it looks like to struggle to trust the Lord, like just living honestly in your relationship with God before them, because that's what you want for them. And so if it's not a multi-generational project, then I don't know where to plug the fifth commandment in.
Do you think that part of I'm watching both sides. I don't care how reformed you are. I don't care how Presbyterian, postmillennial, theonomic you are. I'm watching both sides, left and right, in one sense or another, have a form of a kind of victim mentality, and everybody's playing, I can one up you on the victim game, and they're doing it. It seems like Taraji P. Henson was just like, man, what do we do? All this stuff is up in the air, and nobody feels settled, and everybody feels a little like, oh man, But the people who have truly grasped the fifth commandment, they're not in that state.
No.
Right. But you think that's the reason why is because of the lack of really embracing the reality of the fifth commandment?
Because there's not people over there keeping you from prospering in the world.
You better say it. Hold on, boy. Let me find my argument. Preach up. Glory. You better say that again. There's not people over there that's keeping you from prospering in the world. Oh,
because how do you prosper in the land, right? How do you prosper in the world?
Because they won't let me vote. It's not.
This is, and it's not that injustice doesn't happen, right? Because injustice really does happen in the world.
Yes.
There's an entire book about suffering, about the proper view of suffering in Job. There's an entire book about how to live in a world that by faith that doesn't always function the way the Proverbs tell us does in Ecclesiastes. And then there's an entire book about how the world normally works, right? Proverbs, right? So you've got all those things. But if you look at if you get taken advantage of, or and then you look at the thing and you say, these people are going to be able to keep me from God's blessings. Unless they get in line, they're going to keep me from God's blessings. Then you're going to be a victim, and you're never going to, and you aren't going to prosper, right? Victims don't prosper. And Christians are growing in their victim mentality. They're starting to say, man, they're forcing us to the back of the bus. I can tell you exactly what to do if they force you to the back of the bus. Turn the bus into a party. Turn the back of the bus into the party that everybody wants to be at. Pretty soon, the bus will be driving the other direction. Right? You say, okay, Lord, I'm going to honor my father and my mother right here, right now. I'm going to teach my children to honor their father and their mother so that they'll go well within the land. I'm going to bring them into the mission that God has given me in the world, and God will prosper us. Now, I, in my generation, might not be the one who tastes and sees all of the prosperity. Right? But my children will, my grandchildren will, right? The prosperity, God promises it will come, right? But we think so individualistically that we think if I don't get it personally, it never came.
There's something else too, as you're talking about this. I'm actually thinking practically, something that's really important, the honoring of your parents. We're on this fifth commandment thing, and everybody has a parent, right? Parents. And figuring out the way and what stage of life you should be honoring them is really important if you're going to see blessings, right? If you're going to actually, because I'm thinking about this when Jesus in the New Testament says, hey, you deserve the death penalty for not honoring your parents. He's not dealing with little ones and children at that point. He's dealing with the ones who have promised their earnings to the church in order to gather more of it, Korban, so they don't have to take care of their parents. That's
it's easier to honor your ancestors than your parents.
Right. It is. And that's so true. And so it's like, wait a second, you deserve the death penalty for that, Jesus said, right? And here we are. And just watching everybody deal with Social Security, like they've just given up completely on that honoring of their parents, the responsibility to take care of them, because there's a blessing in that from your children watching you do it. And then there's this whole form of economic blessing that just comes naturally from obeying God's law that we are completely missing out on because we don't have the wisdom. I mean, we've given we used to go as kids to the nursing homes and talk to people, and some of these old folks, we used to do this as children. My mom used to do it. They were so wise. And I remember being so surprised as a kid that somebody so wrinkly and shriveled up and who could barely talk could really give me so much wisdom. Right. And I'd be like, wow, that was actually intelligent. I never want to eat your food because it doesn't taste good. But listening to you, I'm gaining so much information. I used to sit there with these guys and talk to them half the day until they were like, oh, young man, you're going to be all right if you just do these things. And I'm like, wow, I don't know people who have that anymore. Right.
Yeah, I saw the report for a sociological study where they took 40 people that were 20 years old and 40 people that were in their 70 or above, and they had them live together for 7 days, and they had them write a report at the end of their first day on their relationship, and their report at the end of the 7th day on their relationship. Only 7 days together, and they were reading the transformational impact that 7 days living with somebody over the age of 70 had. And it's sad. There are not social pressures or social societal setups that make that possible anymore. You have to do it on purpose now, right? It used to be just kind of a normal part.
It was built into the system. Yeah,
it was built into the system, but the system has broken down, and the generations have been rivals now for 4 generations, right? So I think the curse of the 3rd and 4th generation hopefully is about to break, right? I mean, I think the generation that broke that broke down into rivalry is also the generation that tried to solve the problem of the country with prohibition, right? So God took their parents and their wine away in the same generation, and hopefully we're at the end of that curse, and we can see some restoration. I mean,
part of what bothers me, I think, in this is that I've been pounding, and I wish I can scream it loud. I just don't know how to. But I've been pounding. It's not that what they do in the political sphere is not important and that it doesn't matter. It really does, because in a lot of ways, it is the engine light of what's going on with the vehicle. We have a problem in the engine. It's not good. But a lot of things that we do is we go and we pull the fuse box and say, all right, that light's off now. Let's just keep driving, right? Because it makes our conscience feel good. And I feel like we're doing that in a lot of ways with our nation, thinking that we can solve the problem in that way. I don't think it works that way. But for the way that it does work, how do we, not having a collective group of people united, it doesn't feel like we have a whole bunch of power. It doesn't feel like we have a gathered group that moves like in a function together. How do you then, knowing this, how do you start applying the 5th commandment stuff in a way that really does breed success? You know what I mean? Because I think when people think about success, they think about, okay, something happens out there in Washington when I do this. It's like this switch, right? And I think that's what everybody's looking for, which is why they're like, yeah, okay, yeah, we know we take care of our kids. Yeah, we take care of our mom and dad. Sure, we're going to do that. But man, Washington's, we got to fix that thing. Should we even be thinking like that?
Well, I do think that we should be thinking like that. Like, I don't think it has to be an either or. But I think a couple of things. One, Killer Mike's acceptance speech was really I thought eye-opening
at the BET Awards. Yeah,
at the BET Awards. Yeah, and the way he ended with, "Do you even know your local politicians?" I get it.
City council member.
Everything's coming up that's important, but do you know your local politicians? Do you know your city council? Do you know your city prosecutor? You know, all that. So I think we do need to that we think that we have accepted the assumption that the power is at the top, and we've got to fix it from there, and we have lost track of the way things actually work, right? So that there is a local, a true attending to your local, um, even in politics, attending to the local is really important. The city of Spokane is a city I love, and it's been really sad to watch the local failures lead to the destruction of what was a growing, vibrant downtown. And I've seen it now happen multiple times in my life, where you get somebody comes in and they start to fix the downtown, and it starts to get better, and then the lawlessness is given free reign, and it destroys the lives of real people, the businesses of real people, right? It destroys the actual families that have their money invested in companies, that when lawlessness is allowed at the local level, you don't solve that at the federal level. So there is, I think, a political localism that I think needs to be restored as a because of a metaphysical reality that we're ignoring, and we're letting but so you got that. But I also think that there is a real deep sense in which we need to actually get things right in our local church, get things right in terms of doing it by faith, with doing it by faith with joy, rather than the way that we, rather doing it, I think, by works in fear, which is the opposite of by faith with joy. In our home, in our church, right? To really dig in there in those spots. And I mean, here's just a practical example. I remember when my kids were young, my wife having the kids sit down and write her thank you notes for what she did, right? And it wasn't because she needed them, right? It was because they needed to learn how to express gratitude, right? And it's because it was our job to teach them the 10 commandments. Honor your father and your mother. She's like, okay, what would it look like for my kids to honor me? So she would make them write thank you notes, and but she did it cheerfully, and she was never complaining. And and then we also have certain family liturgies that we've set up surrounding Mother's Day, surrounding birthdays, surrounding the holidays, that all are focused in on training our kids to express honor, right? So to training them to put honor into words. And now we've got kids that know how to do it, and when the time comes, they know how exactly to express gratitude, express honor, and that was something that was my wife's idea, right? She was the one that came up with we knew we were on the same page in terms of, we would have the discussions. How do we teach our kids to do this? How do we teach our kids to honor the Sabbath? How do we teach our kids? So, and she would come up with ideas, and then we would set them into the liturgical patterns of the Farley calendar. And we can see that the way that has influence the imagination of our kids. Now, it's all by grace. It was God's grace. The 119th Psalm starts with telling us that our obedience to the law is a gift, right? So even any time that we obey, it's something that Aaron and I, we often say, man, we're so grateful that God taught us that. We're so grateful that God did that, right? Within us. But it's such an important part of just getting real practical and saying, what does it look like to teach my kids to honor by faith? Not because I'm offended if they don't, but because if God tells them that this is the way to blessing, what does it look like to train them in that with the with the calendar that we have, because it's a historical promise, the calendar is the right place to put it, right? So with the calendar that we have, with the liturgies that we have as a family, right? And then really just believing that by faith, God says this is the way to prosperity, right? The prosperity of your relationship with God, the prosperity of their family, their children, physical, civic prosperity, economic prosperity. All of them are at that is the road that leads to prosperity, is honor your father and your mother.